This is another head-up match, head-up no limit hold'em match on the Prima Poker Network. This one's at 25.50 no limit. It's a 5K buy-in. We just started. I'm playing head-up against the Menace. We have quite a bit of history with one another. We've played quite a few marathon head-up sessions. Matches that have lasted 3, 4, 5 hours with huge swings. I think overall I'm up a decent amount, but definitely not a lot for the amount of hours we played against each other. It's been pretty close, and he's definitely had some big wins against me. So we both have played really aggressive against each other in the past, and we both know that each of us is capable of big bluffs and taking tricky and interesting lines with our hands. So that's going to influence a lot of the plays you see this match. So anyway, King Jack suited's an easy open. Menace tends to re-raise to 450, which is a really small re-raise for head up. I usually like to make it, if I'm opening for 150, I would say a normal size re-raise would be to 600. He's making it to 450, which means that I have to call with a lot of hands, and it puts me in a lot of tricky spots. This is really marginal, but just because the re-raise is so small, I don't think I can fold, and also because he's re-raising me 2 out of the first 3 hands. I can't let him run me over really easily. That's an interesting turn card. It put a force rate on, but also a flush draw for us, so I'm going to check that behind. This is an interesting river. It looks like we don't really have that strong of a hand since any 6 beats us, but he would never have checked a hand better than Jack 7 there on both the turn and the river. If he had something like a straight or even 2 pair or set, he definitely, after the turn went check check, would have bet the river. So I just shoved the river when he checked there, trying to make it look like I had a busted flush draw, hoping to get looked up. Pretty light, but it didn't happen. Okay, so this is another interesting spot we've gotten ourselves into. He re-raised us again pre-flop. He led the flop for 750. I min-raised to 1500, trying to make it look like I was making a move, hoping he would bluff push over the top of me. He just called, and ugly turn, got checked down. River was okay. He shoved the river on me, and against almost all players that would be a fold, but because of a lot of the prior action we've had here, I feel like his range is pretty wide there, and he's going to bluff. He's going to bet any hand that he gets to the river at that point, he's going to push. I feel like he really could have had 9s or 8s or 10 or a lot of hands. He made a really nice value bet with queens there. I'm kind of surprised he didn't jam on the flop. But he made an excellent river push, and I paid it off, and so not a great start. But that's definitely not a standard play. I don't want to make you guys think that every time you flop top pair on a re-raise pot and overcards hit, you have to try and make a hero call, and the guy's always bluffing. But against Menace and with our prior history, I feel like a call was right there. Even though we lost, I feel like his range is wide, and he's bluffing a lot there. So, and I also felt like he really wouldn't have a hand like queens. Like if he had a legitimate overpair type hand, he would have just jammed on the flop. So I felt like his range was aces, like ace king and big aces that hit, and total bluffs, and I think we're ahead of that range. So fortunately it didn't work out. Man, he is really playing aggressive. So there are a couple ways you can deal with an aggressive player. One is you can screw down and play really tightly, and that'll work against your sort of bad aggressive player, someone who's just blindly aggressive. I could just start playing really tight and only betting with good hands and folding a lot pre-flop, and a bad player would continue to try and re-raise and bluff me, and I could profit from that by just checking my good hands behind and Okay, so let's go back over that hand in more detail. We opened with King 7 offsuit. That's, sort of on the marginal end of opening hands for head up, but pretty standard. I mean, it's fine to fold there, but it's definitely not. It's fine to open as well. He re-raises to 450. Against most people, well, most people are probably going to re-raise bigger, but against a lot of people here, most people are going to re-raise bigger than that, so just throw it away if they do. Because he makes a small re-raise, and because he's been running us over so hard, and I feel like he must be making a ton of bluffs in here just because of the frequency with which he's been raising and re-raising us just all the time. So I feel like he's really decided to start off this match in high gear, trying to establish a loose, aggressive image, and then maybe screw down later and try and get paid off with that image. So we can't just let him run us over. So we need to play back at some point. So I decided to call with King 7 offsuit. It's marginal, probably best to just fold, but you can argue that it's okay to call too. The flop comes ace, queen, queen with 2 diamonds. He leads out for 750, which I'm pretty sure he's going to do with any hand that he re-raised with pre-flop on that flop, just because it's a great flop to continuation bet. Now, I decide I want to make a move here. If I just shove, he can interpret that in a lot of ways. He can think, oh, he has a diamond draw, or a weak hand and just wants to get all his money in now, and he can maybe call me with a weak hand, which we don't want. I could just call, but I feel like he might just shove the turn with nothing, and so I couldn't really... He would sort of take the play away from me there. What I did earlier, if you remember, with the Queen 10 offsuit hand, where he had pocket queens and basically doubled through us, is I min-raised him, and that time I had top pair, which is a pretty strong hand, head up, in a re-raise pot. So I decided to take that line here. He bet 750, I min-raised him to 1500. I sort of think he has to respect that. I can't recall ever taking that line as a bluff against him in our previous matches, and so I think he has to give us credit for a real hand here. He decides to just call, which really surprised me. Thinking back, trying to construct his range, I immediately thought that he can't have a really strong hand here, just because I think he would shove over the top of us if he did. And I'm pretty sure he'd shove with a diamond draw. And I think he'd even shove with just an ace there, even a bad one. So I sort of think his hand range is something like pocket pairs below queens, if I had to take a rough guess. And a decent percentage of just absolute air, thinking that maybe I can make a play at this pot later, which sort of counteracts what I said before, is that he'd have to give us credit for a real hand and fold. And now I think he's calling with air, but I'm really surprised he just called. I didn't think that would ever happen. I thought he would either fold or shove. So the turn comes in offsuit 10, and he checks, and we have less than a pot size bet left here. We have $2,500, and there's like $4K in the pot, and you almost never want to bluff in spots like that, just because your opponent's getting such a good price, and most people aren't capable of making thin folds like that for less than pot size bets, particularly for all-in pots. And however, I think in this spot it was a good idea to follow through. Like I said, my first inclination to this range here is super weak, and that he may just be calling the flop to see if we're going to give up on the turn. And so I think even though he's getting a really good price to call here, he folds a decent amount of the time, and in this case he did. If he doesn't, we got 4 jacks that'll give us a straight that will probably give us the win, and not that this is justification for a bad play, but it would be a really good image play if he called here and we had king high, absolutely nothing. And we can at least use that to our advantage later in the match. Not that it's worth getting stacked here to show him that we're crazy, but we can at least salvage something from it. So anyway, let's go back to the match.